different ways. They were not always gifted the luxury of grounding ourselves, lengthening, expanding, and checking our width of who we are, and really working within the scope of that. So the self-critical reflection really gears us back to this. And so the invitation is to notice, are you at points in your life, or have there been points in your life where you've disassociated with what's going on around you? There's a lack of connection, or there's an avoidance to what's in your backpack. Is there a disassociation with what is the future, or who stands in front of you in a particular way? So there's an armor, if you want to imagine, around the heart, as Brene Brown would say. Are we closed but have a voice of ambition, right? So I can speak one thing, and yet our embodiment describes something completely different. We're offering that this body is limited in its ability to produce humility. Do you notice that there is a sense, as we have with our coaches, our student coaches in particular, and with one another, the space of we practice opening up, like opening the heart, getting big, really surrounding the world, extending outward as a way of making sure that there's this warmth, this connection with another human being, yet we really haven't attended to what is true for us. We're just going to be open and receptive to what is in front of us. We've not grappled with the stories that society tells or that we tell ourselves. In some traditions or some conversations, we might refer to digging deep into the master assessments. And so these master assessments are just sort of exemplified when we think about the society and the place that we were born and what messages we were given. And yet there are some who enter the school who are very clear, very rich in their knowingness about where they came from. They were gifted the stories of their past. They got a sense for what their roots really were, and some may even present themselves in a place of righteousness, like somebody owes me something. Or maybe they're just really looking to support the world and understanding a little bit more of, here's who I am. I want you to listen. I have a voice that needs to be shared. Yet they're closed on the front side. They have yet to really figure out how to open their heart in a way that connects them deeply and richly in a vulnerable way to another human being. Any of these three we may find ourselves in any situation. I know I have. As Michelle and I developed this sort of concept, if you will, and kind of walked it through ourselves, we said, so what would cultural humility ultimately look like? Like, what is this journey that I'm on? And what are those questions that we're really looking to unpack in order to produce the width, where we're open on the front side and the back side, where we accept who we are in relationship to what we know and what we don't know, in order to touch another soul in a way that expands, that helps us develop the competency through experiences, through conversations, in a very intentional and purposeful way. I want you to imagine your heart. You can feel your heart not just on the front side of your body. The backpack is intended to help remind you that your heart also gets to beat on the backside. So practices that can be developed with student coaches, with our own clients, quite frankly, of getting them to connect to that backside, to understand, to love themselves in that way, produces that dignity that we spoke to, but not at the cost of someone else. So our invitation here is to just notice where you are, notice where your students are, and invite them to explore these different places that they find themselves in, with the aspiration that when they're sitting next to, on the bench, a client that they're in service to, that they practice as much as possible being open in the width of who they are, heart to heart, front to back.
And I'd like to point out that we don't move through this as a continuum. So it's visually on a slide from left to right, That doesn't mean we start at the left and we move to the right. Over time, we keep popping around between those four different, based on what happened that morning, based on were you cut off in traffic? What happened? Did you receive roses? Whatever it might be. So we keep moving around and not always through those in that same order.
So, given thinking about how all does this come together in terms of our work, the key ICF competencies that we believe that this conversation touches upon is certainly coaching presence, building trust and intimacy, creating a different listening because I have a listening that is different in myself, provoking what I'm going to offer is a different level of curiosity moving into wonderment, wondering about what are the perspectives of the person who sits next to me on that bench. So our powerful questions begin to take a different shape. We begin to dive deeper in a more organic way and wonder, what is it that you're seeing that I am not seeing in relationship to the situation that you've brought here today? What is that for you? And leaving my assumptions or suspicions behind. That often leads then, right, to creating a different type of awareness. It's important that as we close our conversation that we own and accept who we are in the dignity that we are, knowing that we're human, and that we strive to be better at what we do and how we do that, but not at the cost of someone else. And it is an ontological approach. One of the things that I recognize in this journey is that big eyeball that we sometimes teach about, right? Observing self when we're in a coaching conversation, or even observing self as I stand here, is that I'm always monitoring what is happening in the moment that it is occurring, and then noticing, right? Making those particular judgments about that. So cultural humility is about noticing what is the story that's in my backpack that may be causing me to pose a question in a particular way or listen from a particular frame, and wonder about that. Post the coaching conversation. Where did that come from? What was that about? What does that say about who I am as a human being? That helps to elevate our coaching students, and certainly my claim is ourselves.